everybody. Hi, my name is Teosha Charles, and this is Animation Station. I have my wonderful co-host Joseph.
Hey, Tiasha, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Ready to get this started.
Yay! All right, guys. Our number one topic is basically wonderful bin-worthy shows.
hmm
Who has more than 3 seasons?
Yeah, or just really just like a ton of seasons or a ton of episodes, depending on what you're watching. With us starting the show and everything, there's a lot of people who are getting into anime, or they're just have a free weekend or something like that. Pretty much the purpose of this episode is just to give you something that has just a lot of episodes or just like a huge following, huge seasons that you can just binge watch, because that's becoming the more popular thing with streaming happening now with things like Netflix and Hulu. So just having a great show to watch, or if you have like a free weekend, or just something you're willing to get into, especially if you're trying to introduce someone new into anime or the American cartoons.
And we're gonna have total fun. Totally
Yeah.
fun.
Yep. And again, the purpose of the show is just to have, two people who are talking. Tiasha is more of the lover of American, and as for me, myself, your co-host is someone who follows mostly anime. But we're just two people who really love animation. That's what we're trying to bring here to everyone and our listeners here on the show. And speaking of listeners, thank you for listening to the podcast wherever you are, whether you're at the gym or driving to work or just sitting at home. Or you maybe it's late at night and you're trying to fall asleep and everything else. But thank you again for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Well, let's see. Okay, you want to start or you want me to?
No, well, I mean, with you, I figure we should let you start since I believe think I started first on the last episode. So, ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I don't know if you guys know this show, but it's been 8 seasons. Okay, 8 seasons of this wonderful show called Regular Show. It's about it's about this blue jay who's actually I think either 6 feet tall, who's 21 years old, named Mordecai, and this little raccoon looking guy who's literally I think like 4 feet, named Rigby, who they're both super best friends who get a job as park manager, not park well park employees where they clean up the parks and have little activities at the parks and stuff like that. And when they get this job, they're hanging out, they sometimes get in trouble with their boss, and slowly they start to see that park is actually kind of magical. And it's like different types of situations happen where it's either like they unlock something that's a ghost, or like a magical witch coming out of nowhere, like turning people into cheese, like this crazy stuff happening all in this one park. And this show like goes on and on to where they start making jokes, they start having like different um merchandises and like different types of stuff that actually is amazing and funny. Like they have this one little like this little catchphrases that they do, and every time someone makes a joke or does something funny, they're like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
So it's amazing, and I love this show. Oh my god, it's awesome.
Yeah, and the good thing about the show is that even though it ended in 2017 is when it finally concluded. So it had a pretty good run of going from 2010 to 2017, which is a pretty long, series to run for. With looking at it right now, so a total of 8 seasons and 261 episodes, which is a pretty big deal.
Yes,
For it was on I believe it was on Cartoon Network.
yes.
Yeah. So with this one, I've heard of it. It was very popular. Very big in pop culture. Seeing T-shirts and commercials and everything else from it. But I don't think I ever. I think I saw like maybe like one or two episodes of the regular show and everything. But I am aware of what it is. With the bird and the characters and everything. But this is pretty pretty huge. So to give without like I guess giving too much away, for anyone who hasn't like watched the show, what would you say is like the overall appeal or gist of the show, considering someone who would want to watch something like this that's over 250 episodes?
Well, okay. the main person, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but when he made the show, he said it's based on him and his best friend,
Hmm.
and they had the same job. Of course, no magical stuff happened, but they had the same job, and they used to have lots of adventures doing this job when they were younger. So if you have like a best friend who's your bro, and you literally do like handshakes, any type of like how you say catchphrases with each other, like have
Hmm.
fun with your bro. This is definitely the main show that you guys can get acquainted about. Like you guys can
Yeah.
actually get connected to the show because it's basically like a bro show.
Hmm.
Tell you the truth, it's a bro show. Yes, it's like a little bit of a relationship stuff happening, but it's mainly having fun with your bro, and it's like
Hmm.
super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the one thing that I see about it, or what I remember from very few episodes that I saw, it was just really funny because it was just pretty much just two best friends, pretty much at a dead end job.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like those guys who got their first job in high school and never left because they're like, you know what, I'm getting money, I'm not really doing anything, and I come here to work, I hang out with my best friend, and I don't do anything. I just sit here and just like barely like do the minimum amount of effort with this boss who I just don't really like or mess with like all the time. So that's what it just seems like. It just seems like those guys who got a job in high school and just stuck with it and never left because they got student loans or bills to pay, and it's just like, whatever, I get to hang out with my best friend and just do whatever, like I don't care.
But that's a lot of teenagers will actually love that job though. Get to hang out with your friends. And then finding out you can actually live there. In the show, they actually live there in the house in the middle of the park.
Hmm.
So you have literally like you're living there for free. You're working there and you're hanging out with your friend. I mean, of course, don't piss off your boss because you get fired. But
Yeah, but it just seems like that's all they really do, and nothing really happens to them.
that's true. Well, what we know.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing show. You guys should definitely check it out on Cartoon Network.
Yeah,
They
I
still
mean,
have it.
yeah. With a show, I mean, it seems like a big filler because with it, being a big hit that it is, I mean, it has so many episodes to play through. So it just seems like it's something that, there's like shows out there that have been successful or huge for years, and they just play them on a loop, over and over to fill those time slots on television. But researching a little bit about the show, out of curiosity, I didn't realize that Mark Hamill, you know, is one of the regular main cast people inside the show, which is really an interesting thing for me because I'm such a pretty big fan of his, but I didn't had no idea he was on this show. So that's definitely something that I want to look for, considering he's one of my favorite Jokers out there from the cartoon series. And being a fan of the '90s Batman, that's just a really big deal for me.
Oh, we're back with the Batman.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, mostly Mark Hamill. I mean, that's just to me, he's Joker. He was Joker to me before he was Luke Skywalker. So
Right,
that's
right.
that's that's my appeal in that, and knowing that he was actually a voice in this show definitely gets me interested, and definitely want to look into it. And the great thing about it is that the show's already over, so there's no need to
Right.
like worrying about how it ends. And that's kind of like, and it's great that it got like an actual finale, an hour finale, because most
Yes.
most shows just get canceled, like they end, and like it's like, oh, they're kind of ending like in implying that there's going to be a second season in there, or a third season or whatever, and then like they get canned, and it's just like, oh well, you don't really know what happens next. That
Right.
that's a really big deal, or something that happens a lot in anime. you know that a lot of mangas just get like one season, and then
Wow.
they don't get a second one. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
In America, like well, most American shows, like they'll show it, like they'll show the shows for a couple of seasons, and then they'll have like a empty loophole, and then like later, like 5 years later, then it's like, oh, one big movie, like Hey Arnold. They had one, they stopped, and then like literally like 10 years later, all of a sudden, oh, we have one big movie coming out.
Yeah.
Okay, what happened?
Yeah, and well, it just seems like a lot of those things, like either they'll be put in demand to have something, and then like, okay, we'll put this out, and I guess it's just not as much production to put out a movie versus a series or a season, because a season,
Wow.
I mean, I don't really know for sure. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I would think it's easier or faster for them to put out a movie than a season, because with a season, like it's ongoing, versus a movie it's just like you do the work and then bam, you put it out, you bust it out, and then you get whatever money from ticket sales and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's true.
so
I just want to know what happens. Like, it's just
yeah,
like, oh, here we go. He's like freaking like 10 years older. I'm like, what the freak
yeah.
happened? They're like, they'll put like a little cut scene of like what happened to them when they were like while they're getting like while they're growing up. But it's like it doesn't explain nothing.
Hmm.
Like, where do you get these powers? What the heck is this? Where do you get a girlfriend? Like,
Yeah, and well, that's the thing about it, they don't have to. And they're
it
just like, okay,
sucks.
and a 30 minutes of 90 minutes, excuse me, 90 minutes versus a season where it's 24 episodes usually. Sometimes it's less depending on the show series, but at 24 episodes, 30 minutes, that's 12 hours of work versus an hour and a half, 90 minutes. So it's just a lot easier, I think, as far as production, far less work.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So.
But let's talk about your pick. Come on, I want to hear
Yeah.
your
Okay.
pick.
Well, I believe we're doing two, possibly three picks, and everything else, but depending on how much time we got. But my first one, we've kind of talked about it a little bit in our first pilot when we talked about our favorite shows. But I gotta say, one of the longest running anime series out there, is Dragon Ball. The Dragon Ball series, I did had a couple of nominees, but just Dragon Ball, just when you look at it overall, how long it's been running and how many shows it still has, and the fact that they're going on strong right now with a brand new season.
It's never gonna die.
No, no, no. Yeah, I
Never.
mean, I know. I mean, this thing is over 30 years old when the first, I believe it was 86, I believe, when the very first Dragon Ball animated series started. And they just started a new one, just last year and everything else. So the fact that it's been going on for over 30 years is just by far, I mean, it's by far the most binge worthy, you know, animation series out there. I mean, I don't
Right.
think there's any real. I mean, I'm pretty sure, I mean, for our listeners, if you want to, challenge me on this, but in my opinion, I think it's one of the biggest, and best animated series out there as far as like binge worthy, because there's just so many episodes, just so much, and the fact that it's been going on for 30 years still, and still going strong with a number of movies, games, and everything else that it's been able to do for anime, and just in Japan in general, is just definitely a binge worthy show. Just like anybody who wants to watch anime, or anyone who watches anime wants to try and get someone new into it, I mean, this is what I would show them. It's just like, this is what it's all about. Although I would think some would probably find it ridiculous, but the best thing of one of the things I would say about it, as someone who's studied animation and things like that, I would say that you really see the overall change in quality, not just the show, but just technology in general and the way animation is done. Because you look at what it was like for Dragon Ball, the very first animated series back in the 80s through the 90s, 2000s, and Dragon Ball Super, after 2010s and everything else. Like, you just really see just the overall quality and just how we approach, animation in general. And from everything from the 2D drawing illustrations to the 3D modeling that's now being used in a majority, and then along with like the special effects, that they add to the anime itself with like, like particle effects and things like that. You just really notice just the change in production value. And I think that's just something that's a really cool thing. Also, just the characters' faces. Like I saw this thing on Instagram, and I think maybe we'll be able to share it once I find it again. They just have the faces of Vegeta and Goku, the two main characters of the show, from like different seasons. From Dragon Ball Z, GT, Kai, Super, and now Heroes. You just see like just the changes of their faces and the way they're drawn and made, and it's just kind of hilarious because just to see just the development of quality and things like
Right.
that.
Like it's like one part in Dragon Ball Z where it's where Vegeta and Nappa, and they have like Vegeta like with brown or like kind of like purplish brown hair. And it's
Mhm.
like and then later on when you see Vegeta now, he has regular black hair. And it's
Yeah,
like, wow, did it change from like his dad's hair to, like maybe his mom's hair or something? It was
I
like
think
totally weird.
yeah, I think when I first watched it, they were like, I think it was because they tried to make it. I think they used the excuse that it's because of the environment that they were in, because they were like on a different planet and things like
Oh,
that. That where they were, it kind of like change. It was like a shading thing or shadow thing. Maybe I think that
right.
was the excuse they tried to use. It's like, oh, it's just the shadows and the highlights. Just the way the lighting of that planet was. That made his clothes look like that color. And then when he got to Earth, in our lighting, the colors reflected, to what we know today. But then again, so like after that, everything he stayed the same no matter what planet they were on or where they were. So I think it was just a little bit of a, cheap ploy, but I think it was probably just a design change.
Hmm.
Because
That's
like
good.
that's the thing with a lot of mangas is that when it comes, they're done in black and white for most of them, save for the covers. The covers are colored, but the actual manga itself is usually black and white, and that's
Oh,
something
that's
that
right.
a lot of people say with designing the characters is that why they have such crazy hair. It's because usually their hair colors designed the same or their faces are designed the same. It's like, well, how do we differentiate between them? It's like, oh, let's give them wacky hair, let's give them the most outrageous hair, or their clothing, because a lot of anime mangas, they take place in a school, so they're wearing school uniforms, so they have to really, make their faces look distinct, mostly in the hair, because of the shading and things like that. So
Right, right. Wonderful show though.
yeah, I mean, it's just been going on for so long, and it's really great. Even though they kind of are formulaic, and some people I've watched them, they said it's kind of boring sometimes because like one fight like just drags out for like 5 or 6 episodes or something like that.
Oh
Like
my
like a battle is
god.
like 4 hours long, and things
Next
like that.
time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and it's just like all these different cliffhangers, and they just keep fighting like for a duration of hours. But to me, I think that's what makes it so enjoyable, is because yes, the drama and everything else isn't really a big thing about it. Like if you were to take out the fighting, you would be a very minimum amount of actual dialogue and lines and drama between these characters. Mostly it's just all about fighting, but then again they always monologue in between the fights or in between the fighting, so that
Yeah.
that was
And
also what makes it even more entertaining.
and then like 30 minutes of yelling in
Yeah,
between.
yeah, oh gosh, the
Oh my
voice
god.
actors, I have to really applaud the voice actors in this because of just all the different like sound effects they have to make of grunts and screams and punches and things like that. All, especially the main voice actors, because like I don't know how many times they have power up, and it's just like, how do you make them power up? Like what does that even sound like? Because like those things that they do when they power up, it's like nobody does that in real life. It's like they have no
Right.
like. To me, it just makes it seem like they're just flexing like really, really hard. screaming. Like that's the only thing I can understand is like imagine like a bodybuilder and he's like, they're flexing as hard as they could, but also like yelling at the same time because like all their
Oh my
muscles are just
god.
contracting.
So one of the voice actors for Broly, if you guys don't know, Broly's supposed to be the legendary Super Saiyan,
Mhm.
but the voice actor for him said he had to literally every single time before he records, he has to have hot lemon,
Oh
like
yeah.
literally like hot water, and put a little bit of lemon every single time he records, because doing Broly's voice is so hard for his throat, and it
Mhm.
hurts every time he does it, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
Because they scream so
Kakarot.
much. Yeah, they scream so much. But, you know, it's it's by far the most successful
Yes.
uh, franchises out there as far as in the anime universe, with between the mangas, the animes, the movie deals that they just had just this past, past year with Broly. And then that's another thing too with the rewrites is that they've had a lot of movies and they've kind of rewritten some of their universes with the new books and the new movies and things like that. And now with the new series Dragon Ball Heroes, they're kind of changing some things around than what they
Right.
did in previous seasons. Kind of like with these alternate universes, but um it's just been just an amazing experience, and what it's done for the not for the community in general is that it just has such a big following, and people who don't even know anime or kind of like oblivious to it, it's just one of those series or franchises that kind of has broken out of the norm and has allowed people who don't watch anime to be exposed to it in a way, like it's pulled people in and things like that. So it just has its own gravitational pull because it's just such a huge success.
Right. It's amazing. Oh my god.
Mhm.
It's
And
like the
also,
main anime though.
yeah,
Like, oh
it
my
is.
god.
It's definitely like the pinnacle, I guess. I don't know. It's like the Apple or Microsoft of the anime world. Like it's just
It's like different anime like that we watch today is taking from that. Like
yeah.
there's so much that's taking from Dragon Ball Z into their own section
Hmm.
in anime. And it's like, wow, like someone
Yeah.
literally made this, and then now people are taking like little smidges from there and then putting it into a whole different type of genre, and it's like amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
god.
it wasn't one of the things that I love so much about Dragon Ball. Well, I mean, the fight scenes, of course. I fight scenes have always been my favorite thing in anime. It wasn't really something that you really get from American animation.
Right.
It's usually very, save for like some of the earlier like Ninja Turtles, like we talked about in the first previous episodes and things like that. But there's really nothing in American cartoons that matched up to say some of the fight scenes that you get from you know anime, and that's really more or less my appeal. But the thing also that really draws me in is the development of the character Vegeta. Now, Goku, I like Goku, but he doesn't really change. Like his whole thing is about just getting stronger, just being a great fighter, and just going out and facing the next challenge. Like he doesn't like he doesn't really see anyone as a potential, like he doesn't really hate anyone, like he doesn't have like he rarely holds a grudge, he rarely has hate towards anybody, compared to Vegeta, you know and that's something that I really like about the character Vegeta, is because who he was in Dragon Ball Z to who he is now, like he has the most interesting arc and the most interesting character development about him, and just how he views Goku, over the course of the entire, these past 30 years, how he's viewed him and everything else. So, I mean, more or less, he's my favorite character compared to Goku, who I like. I really like him a lot, but his whole mentality is just about improving himself, and that's it. Like he sees everything just as a friendly he sees everything as just friendly competition, to better himself and improve himself versus, Vegeta, who really is only like, I guess he kind of now sees Goku as his equal.
Now.
Now, he sees them as his equal. They're equally powerful. Where they're two people who are kind of like constantly overlapping each other. Where one will never be fully powerful than the other. Because now we're seeing ways how Goku gets really, really powerful versus Vegeta. How he knows that he can't be like Goku. He has to find his own way
Right.
of being strong and powerful. And then we're starting to see him develop that, where now they're more equals than one being better than the other and stuff like that. But him overall, I would say he's had the most interesting storyline because everyone else is just one maybe two dimensional, but they're most of them are one dimensional characters. At least the ones that follow, like ones like Goku and the people who follow him. Unlike Vegeta, who's now very complex, and that's what I like about.
And a better
Uh,
father.
yeah, but overall, he's who I like, the most. And I kind of want to get a quick plug, real quick, but if for whatever reason, if you watch Dragon Ball and you like Dragon Ball, I do have to get a shout out to Team Four Star,
Yes.
who are an abridged YouTube channel. Which, if you don't know what a bridge is, to some of our listeners, which if you are listening to the show, more likely you know what it is. But pretty much what it is that people, sometimes it takes a long time for an anime to get, English, voice acting done. So what some people do to some of the favorites when they're just in, Japanese with English subtitles is that they just kind of voice over it themselves in a very like comedic way.
Yeah.
And the YouTube channel Team Four Star has done a lot of Dragon Ball Z. By far one of my top favorite, abridged series out there, and it's just hilarious to see how they, Goku and Vegeta and these different, lights and everything, and with them side by side, if you watch both, it's just really great how they what a great job they've done with the show and everything, and just again from where they started with the first Dragon Ball season to where they are now, where I think they just finished up with the Cell saga
Yes. Yes,
and
they did.
which is Dragon Ball Z and everything else. So they just finished up with the Cell saga, and that's
Which part is your favorite though? Like
as
which part of Team Four Star is your favorite? Mine was at the end of when
oh yeah.
when Trunks died and he was like, "My baby boy," and
What?
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh."
yeah. It's just kind of funny, yeah. Because like, and that's the thing, and like their lines kind of go and coincide with the show a little bit. They just make it a little bit more funnier, and a little bit more comedic, and everything else. But I have to say, probably when the Frieza when they're on Namek,
Oh my god.
because like they've that's been around for a little bit while, and
Hmm.
the Cell saga, the Cell games have kind of taken a while for them to finish up. But listening to the I'm sorry, I almost forgot his name, but Frieza, that whole series of them on Namek and everything else was just hilarious, and how they did the voice acting for Frieza and everything. How they kind of match him up, like they usually most times they kind of give him like a weird voice, but they did a really great job in matching them up. But even Cell too, like the voice
Yes.
actor for them, it was just hilarious, just how they did them. So
It was so bad when when they kept doing the voice of Zarbon.
hmm
It's
yeah,
so inappropriate. It's so
yeah.
bad.
But it kind of fit a little bit, and they just made it funny with the editing. They've done a really great job with like the voice acting and the quality. So, but
He's like, he's
yeah,
like, Lord Frieza.
yeah. Oh, Frieza.
Quick, Zarbon, grab my ball.
Yeah.
I can't.
All right. Yeah. All right. That's the conversation for another time, but maybe we'll be able to have one of some of our favorite, abridged moments, kind of like a
Right.
side episode or something like that. But getting a little off track, but I just wanted to mention it a little bit because they've done a lot too. They have a ton of episodes, and for anyone who's a Dragon Ball fan, probably knows of them already. But for any of our listeners who haven't yet, Team 4 Star or just watch Dragon Ball, because it's an amazing series and everything else. Totally binge worthy, and you can find it, on Crunchyroll, Funimation, or just on YouTube in general and stuff like that. So,
Yes.
but let's circle back to you a little bit, for our second show, or a second show that some of our listeners would find binge worthy on a long weekend.
Ed, and Eddie. Yes,
Yeah.
number one. Ed, and Eddie, who has 6 seasons. Ed and Eddie is about these three preteens, teenagers who literally kind of have the same name. You have Ed, who is the dumb one, but who is
Mhm.
super strong. ED, and then you have Double D, which is EDD.
Mhm.
Um, who is a smart one, who has a black little beanie, who's really smart, who has a cute little gap, and then you have Eddie,
Yeah.
EDDY, who is short, but he loves money and he always has ideas. And these three, who literally is in summer vacation, living in a cul-de-sac with all these other kids, which by the way, trying, I guess, scam them.
Mhm.
Might have, like for example, one of their ideas was making ice cream.
Yeah.
And well, they didn't actually make the ice cream. What they did was is use construction paper as the cone, get a baseball, and dunk it in some pink paint, like it's a strawberry ice cream, and glue it to the paper cone and sell it as an ice cream cone.
Mhm.
So basically, throughout the whole summer, and even when they started school again, they're scamming people out of their money because apparently they want to buy these jawbreakers. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of you guys know these jawbreakers. Jawbreakers are like super small little candies where you can't bite them because they break your teeth, but you suck on them and it's supposed to be super sugary.
Yeah.
Well, in Ed and Eddie, they're huge. They're bigger than your head, and apparently they're able to put it in their mouths and suck on them, and
Mhm.
it's like super funny. So instead of worrying about a bike or video games or anything like that, they only care about the jawbreakers because it's like the
Mhm.
main candy, and you have to get 25 cents. That's all it costs, is 25 cents. So either it has to do with um, a swimming pool, or making your own go-kart, or being a delivery service like in the show. Everything's 25 cents.
Mhm.
And it's a super fun show. It's funny. They have this guy named Kevin who rides a bike, which by the way, when he rides his bike, it sounds like a motorcycle. And he always calls Ed, no, they always called Ed, Double D, and Eddie dorks. That
Yeah.
is their name for him.
Yeah.
And and put it this way: sometimes they get invited to stuff, but majority they don't get invited to stuff because they're like the outsiders.
Yeah.
And because they've been scammed so many times by them, they don't want to be involved by them.
Mhm.
Like they don't want to get involved with them or anything like that. But the number one girls that who kind of that everybody's afraid of is about these three girls called the Canker Sisters.
Mhm.
And they are trailer trash. One is named Lee. She has red hair. Um, one is named Marie, who's kind of look like a punk rocker with blue hair. And then you have May, who kind of does look like a trailer trash girl with buck teeth, who's blonde. And so each one of them likes the Eds. You got Lee, who likes Eddie. You got Marie, who likes Double D, and of course you have May, who likes Ed. And they all three of them literally try to kiss him, hug him, call him our boyfriends and stuff like that. And they
Mhm.
run. And every time they see the Kangers, they're like Kangers, and they freaking run. But anyway, this show is amazing. It's funny. You can literally watch it on Cartoon Network Boomerang, or
Yeah.
even on YouTube. They even have like hour specials on
Mhm.
YouTube where you can watch it. But it's an amazing show. 6 seasons of this. Oh my
Yeah.
god, it's amazing. And they even the last episode, or I'll put it this way, the last movie is when they finally get to see Eddie's big brother, which you guys don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, Eddie's big brother. is what everybody knows Eddie's big brother. Never, they only seen him once, but Eddie's big brother is supposed to be like this big tough guy who's totally popular, which everyone like talks about, saying he did this, he did that, he lifted up a giant car, like stuff like that.
Hmm.
He's supposed to be the tough guy, and the movie is when they actually meet him, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my
Because
god!
like yeah, because he was like this hidden figure, like he was like a silhouette or something like that. Like they never actually showed him. He was like this big mystery, and then
Exactly.
everyone was all like, "What's the deal with him?" So it seemed like because it was like the last one, they're like, we'll do it. We'll solve the mystery and everything else like that." Because yeah, looking at it, like it had like 70 episodes and things like that. So it was pretty good run, for something of that standard with the show. And I gotta admit, like it was really weird for me, but I really thought that Ed Double D, like before I actually watched the show, I always thought he was a girl.
Dude, you're not the first person that actually thought that. Everyone
Like
thought
it
Double
was
D was a girl.
yeah, because like the way they talked and everything else, and just like the way they're designed, like it just looks like a girl. It looks more like feminine, I guess, like that. Like because the longest time I didn't know that that what he was wearing was a hat. I thought it was
Yes.
hair.
Wait,
And
really?
there, yeah, because like I thought, it wasn't a hat. It was because like in some episodes, like again, that's why,
Sabini.
yeah, but that's why I love like the show that we're talking about because like these are shows like it was from like the 2000s,
Right.
which I did watch a little bit of, but I didn't really follow that much. And some of the shows that because like I didn't watch Cartoon Network or anything like that, but when I would see it, catch an episode here and there, like he never like took off his hat or never said anything about his hat or anything like that. It was
Oh,
just kind
that's
of
the
just there.
mystery.
I always assumed that was his hair and the way the voice acting was and the way he sounded. Like I always thought it was just like a girl, like a tomboy kind of person or something like that. Because they always say like Double D, they called him Double D, not Ed.
Right.
So, like, if you're not someone who follows the show, if you just kind of catch a show here and there, you just think like Double D is just like, something else. But yeah, it was like, oh, is Ed and Eddie. But them calling him Double D, and just the voice is just, it just always seemed to be like a girl or something like
Right.
that. So,
But that used to be my dream, though. Like I literally wish that all of my friends will actually live that close to me, to where I
mm,
can literally just walk across the street and hang out. Like literally live in a cul-de-sac with all my friends there.
yeah.
That used to be my dream. Instead of literally walking like all the way down the street or all the way up the street just to say hi.
Mhm. Well, I mean, this show with most of these shows, it resonates a lot for city kids or kids who live in suburbs.
Yeah.
For someone like me who grew up more in the countryside of things, or with the Midwest and farming communities. A lot of
Right.
people don't understand this whole concept unless you live like inside the town itself. But a lot of times, your friends aren't like your neighbors until like except when you're in grade school or something like that. Then like you kind of know everybody and you become friends with everybody. And then you kind of just walk to people's houses. But I think that's what made a lot of these shows popular because it was a time in the early 2000s, before the internet really took off to what it is today, where everyone does everything online.
Nobody
You actually,
goes outside.
well, it's not just like everyone doesn't go outside, because even at that time in the 2000s, there was still online gaming was just starting to get started. But that was the appeal for these shows is that, everyone went outside. They
Right.
either played, baseball on the street or basketball on the street or something along those lines, or they went to the park or something, played games, because there wasn't, something for you had to go outside in order to see everybody versus, going online and being able to hang out with multiple people doing multiple things. So,
So lazy.
well, I want to say lazy. I just think you have a lot more, you know, at your fingertips.
Nobody
You
goes
got so much more.
outside anymore.
Well, have you been outside?
Well, yeah, I have to,
I
but
mean,
like if I didn't, I wouldn't.
it's kind of awful, But I mean, that's just the thing. Like, people can make up games and they can play and you can do stuff really fun outside, but like you can't shoot stuff, other than having a Nerf
Right.
gun. Well, other than buying things for paintball, you're better off just, buying a console and
Oh my
paying for.
god.
I mean, you're already paying for internet, but
Right, right.
you know, I think that was the appeal to some of these shows because it reflects of what people actually did versus some
Right.
of the ones today where they're kind of just like, you getting a lot more crazier with some of these other shows that are happening with some of the things. You got to find new ways to entertain.
Well, they entertain themselves by scamming people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's funny because they're all in middle school. Well, except
Mm-hmm.
for this character named Jimmy and Sarah, who's, by the way, Sarah is Ed's with guy with the unibrow who's super dumb's little sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a giant. Oh, I wouldn't say a bully. She just don't take any crap.
Yeah,
But either way, this show is freaking amazing.
yeah,
It's like you really want to be there. Like it's so
yeah,
much. It's funny. It's super hilarious. And the
yeah,
thing is, when they get hurt, oh my gosh, they get hurt in so many ways where it's like you either see like the bump like coming up like like a flag, or you see like their bone popping out of their arm. It's like ew, but at the same time it's kind of funny.
yeah. Because with both of your picks, it's always about close friendships and just the relationship that you have with your friends.
Right.
That's what I'm seeing with your two picks here is that it's always about friendship and having a
Oh, of
close relationship with the
course.
people that you have. But that's also creates really great dialogue because some of the best comedies out there are really just really great dialogue between two people and just how they're able to make each other laugh and also rip on each other.
Yep, yep. It's amazing though. This show was definitely one of my favorites. It
Mhm.
was the best. But come on, I want to hear that second one. Come on, dude.
All right, well, so this will be the second one of mine and the final show that we're going to talk about here. I will give like one honorable mention briefly towards the end, but I'm going to talk about, my second and final one that I think is really worth watching for anyone here who's a fan of anime. And more likely, they probably have heard this one before, but Fairy Tale. Now, we haven't talked about this show yet on a podcast, but pretty much what it's about, it's a set in a fantasy setting where everyone is capable of doing magic. Now, but the downside is kind of like, Airbender that we talked about in the last episode. Everyone is only allowed one type of magic. It's not like how everyone can just do all different kinds of magic, like in other fantasy stories and things like that. It's like, no, there is magic, but everyone's born with a certain attribute,
Right.
and because of that attribute, you're only allowed to do one certain type of magic. So you can do, so imagine you can do magic, but you only have like one type of magic that you can do. It's like only having like one superpower instead of like multiple superpowers, or learning other superpowers and things like that. Because that's what's kind of sad about some of this stuff. Even in the Airbender, where you have earth bending, but you have some people who are able to do lava bending or metal bending. Kind of like this sort of addition to what they can already do. Same thing with like the water and fire. Where they can do fire and lightning. In this
Or with
show,
Katara, she was able to do blood bending. It still was some
yeah,
type of liquid,
yeah,
which that was scary.
which is in addition to like the water, and even with the air. With the air, it just seems like they can just do air, but the way they implemented it was very interesting too as well. But that's not the case here with this show, where everyone's kind of limited to just like one magic ability. But it follows the story of Natsu Dragneel, who's like the main character, even though he is sort of the main character of the show. There's other people that are with him that are just as important and just as vital to the story, and that's one of the great appeals about this, is that you get such an introduction of so many characters, not just the main cast, but so many other side characters and things like that, and villains that are just really great. And you get to see how these characters develop over the course of the show. It's was in its final season. So much like the first one that we talked about, this one is wrapping up. And it's been going on for quite a long time. I
A
believe,
long time.
yeah, I think it's at 10 years. It's and everything else. So it's just wrapped up its last season, I think, or is it still going on? I'm not entirely sure.
I
I
think it's
haven't.
still going.
Yeah, I think it's still going to. No, no, yes, it is. Sorry. Yeah, it is. It's still going on. It's still got like another 20 episodes left, but it is in its final season, and it's gonna reach like almost 350 episodes because it's currently at 328.
Jesus.
So, yeah. The first show was on 2000 and fall 2009. That's when the first one started. So it's gonna pretty much go for like a full 10 years because I think it's probably gonna end this fall. So it'll be exactly 10 years when it finally wraps. So if you're listening and you haven't really gotten into it, or you started watching it and like never really finished it or something like that, you'll have an opportunity to like binge watch, all 300 episodes, over 300 episodes, and try and catch the finale, and because, this year it's going to end. So that's kind of what I'm going to do now, because I know I have a little bit of catching up to do. I've kind of fallen a little bit behind on this current season and everything else, but it has done so well for itself, and it's done great things for the community, much like Dragon Ball. But again, it has a huge following of people, and 10 years, it's a good run. And with over 300 episodes, this will definitely take you a good amount of time to finish and binge watch if you're bored or don't have anything, going on.
Right. So you better get some popcorn, get your snacks,
hmm
and
And
just chill.
yeah, and it's got I think two movies, and it actually has some sort of side stories too that it had. One of the things that just recently released was a prequel. I believe it was 12 episodes called Fairy Tale Zero, where it kind of talks about how the Fairy Tale Guild actually started. So Fairy Tale stands is the name of the guild. So in this world that these characters live in, they form sort of these guilds of wizards. That's what they call themselves. One of those who are able to do magic. And pretty much, it's kind of like a video game almost, where you have these different guilds and organizations, and they all have these names, kind of like gangs almost. I mean, I don't want to call them gangs, but they're called guilds, but they're pretty much organizations for these wizards. And your reputation's really based upon which guild you belong to. And everyone kind of has like this guild hall, which is a place where everyone lives, with a barracks, and a place where everyone gathers and hangs out. So these people kind of become like your second family almost for
Right.
most of them, because it's where they live. And most of these guilds are placed in cities and things like that. And from the way it works is that people put up these requests, very similar to some video games like Skyrim or anything else, where these wizards, based upon like their skills and abilities, take on these jobs for money. So imagine like you can do magic, you join a gang, I guess you can call it a guild, and then in order to make money for a job, you're pretty much a freelancer that's doing these favors for people for money. And eventually you're able to take on these bigger things, more heroic deeds, because in the show you see the characters take on these crazy missions to defeat monsters, or just to rescue somebody who's been like kidnapped or something like that. And just having these characters, go on these adventures is just really a lot of fun. And it's interesting to see how these characters develop over time, because again, it's not just like one character or like two or three, in most shows. It's just
It's like so many.
yeah, it's just a series of characters, and as the anime goes on, you get introduced into new and more interesting characters, and you see them develop. So even though there's like the original cast who you see from like the pilot, who is Lucy, Lockhart, and Natsu Dragonio, who are like the two main characters in the show, along with a couple others. But they're the
Right.
ones who stay with it. But then you get introduced to all these other different characters, and you see them go on these adventures and everything else. And it's just really a lot of fun and enjoyable.
I love Lucy so much.
Yeah. And even her, as her character, because a long time I was always thinking to myself, I'm like, why is she even there? she's just there for fan service. Like she's kind of a sissy, kind of a weakling, you know. I mean, I gotta love her voice actress. Her voice actress is one of my favorite people because she has one of those voices that you can just identify immediately because she's done so many other great works out there. And just hearing her voice is like, oh no, I know who that is. I know who that is. Scene, and everything else. But uh, there's so much I can talk about the show and everything. But we're almost out of time and everything else. But I want to talk about my one honorable mention because it just broke 100 episodes, just a couple weeks ago, and that is Black Clover. Now, just to give a brief overview, it's very similar to Fairy Tale, where it implements magic and these guilds, but instead of guilds, they have these organizations called Magic Knights. And pretty much they're like factions where they're in service to a king, and and again, their reputation's based upon which organization you belong to, and everyone wants to get into like one specific organization because they have the best reputation and things like that for people to learn magic. And again, much like Fairy Tale, people are born with like one magical attribute, and that kind of defines them in a way by what magic they have, and it's just really based on how they implement it and ways to use it that make them a really powerful wizard. But they just broke 100 episodes. They started in 2017 and they've been going just nonstop. Like they had like no off season or anything else. They've just been busting out episodes for over, almost 2 years now, nonstop. And they just recently hit 100. So it's a really great show and I highly recommend it along for binging if you got a free weekend.
Because it's going to take forever.
I know. But then again, just a little something if you're not willing to, watch a whole 300 something episodes like Fairy Tale or something like Dragon Ball or any of the other, shows that we recommended. But Black Clover, it's pretty great, and I think it's going to be a really great show once it, finally finishes. But I just wanted to put that in there.
A lot. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just so much. But that's what we want to put in for this episode. Something to recommend our listeners about shows that are just really long. Not really long, but we highly recommend because for these shows that I've watched, I haven't really watched any of the ones that you recommended, but I definitely want to watch those now. Well, I haven't watched them as much as you, but things about Dragon Ball and Fairy Tale is that they never really get boring. Like that's the thing about some shows is that they reach like a dry spell, and it's like, oh, where's this going? Where's this going? Like no, like it just keeps you interested. The only reason why I haven't really been able to catch up or stay caught up is because there's been so many others that I've been wanting to watch, and life kind of gets in the way sometimes. Things draw you away from your vices and the things you want to do.
Right.
I don't have as much free time as I used to. So,
well, guys, please, if you guys want to watch these shows, go ahead, enjoy yourselves.
mm-hmm.
Um, please take our shows in consideration because I'm telling you, you guys are going to have a wonderful time. And even if you want to watch with your friends, family, go ahead. It is there for you guys to watch. Different majority of our stuff you can watch. Um, Mine will be on majority Cartoon Network or Cartoon Network Boomerang or even on YouTube. And of course, with Joe's pick is mainly Funimation, right?
Yeah, Funimation, Crunchyroll, and again on YouTube. And there's plenty of websites out there where you can stream for free, and things like that. And also YouTube as well, as always. There's tons of people who are airing them on YouTube. But yeah, there's plenty of streaming services out there for free where you can watch them. But Funimation, Crunchyroll are the main sites, if you don't follow anime or anything like that. But again, leave in the comments, like and subscribe, give us suggestions to ways to improve the show or any topics that you want to hear us talk about. And also in the comments, put down some of the shows that you think are binge worthy, and maybe we can talk about them later on another episode, another show, or anyone else who's looking into it and have conversations with other people who are commenting and give your recommendations.
That's right. I can't wait for you guys to, tell us because I definitely want to watch other people's what they like other people's pick because you never know what people like, and I'm like, I can't wait
Exactly.
for that.
Hmm.
Well, guys, this has been Animation Station. My name is Teosha Charles, and this has been Joseph. And we just have
Thank you
to
for
say,
listening.
yeah. Thank you for listening. We want to say thank you so much, and can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye, guys. Hey guys, it's Tiasha Charles here from Animation Station. Just wanted to talk to you guys about our wonderful company, Elite 23 Global, which is a creative place for creative minds. We have a wonderful board of branches, which is fashion, media, and even gaming. We have a team of creative minds coming together to make projects we always wanted to start, like this one. Also, come check out our clothing store called Elite 23 Shopping to check out the hottest and even cutest styles. If you want something new, come to Elite 23 Shopping. See you guys later. Bye!